Thanks for everyone out here. And oh my gosh, Silva, you trying to take my co-hosting job here? Man's rolling up with a node monkey. Didn't even know he was in ordinals like that. Silva, come up here, bro. Tell us about this node monkey. When'd you get this bad boy?
Bro, I had to pay too much for it. I kept asking you on last week's show to FUD Ordinal so I could get a better entry, and you wouldn't listen.
Dude, that's a sick looking monkey.
Yeah,
Definitely
like
a project I would be positioning in. Flap, do you have any
very,
monkeys?
very nice node monkey. So
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Been looking at them for a while. They're clearly the blue chip of Ordinals, and hearing Roscoe, do a screen share last week, show kind of the trading bands of some projects he's watched, and I've seen this one go between zero point 0.4, zero point 0.5, and upwards of zero point 0.8. And it's bounced between that range 2 or 3 times now, so felt pretty comfortable buying in around zero point 0.5 Bitcoin, and hopefully we can get up to zero point 0.8 or even maybe breach through that on this next run and hit a Bitcoin and, sail off into the sunset.
that buy is going to look really good, I think, in 3 to 4 weeks. All the floors have been down. The volume has been down. So this is probably the time where the attention has moved away from ordinals. It's the time to actually scoop up something that you like, because I think after the halving, after the ruin events and that kind of liquidity hits the market, we're gonna see money come back into ordinals.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
I felt pretty similar, Woff. You can never really time the market, unless you're lucky. So just trying to do my best there and kind of follow on, a lot of the lessons you and Ross are going on every week on in here. So shooting my shot, and I'll make sure I ping you guys in a couple of weeks when I'm either down 50% or up 2x. So
Well, one collection I think that's hit an absolute bottom is definitely Natcats. It's at 0.029. I think that's worthy of a pickup. The floor has been kind of like slowing down as far as the bottom is concerned. I think we're bottoming for sure. We're back to the spreadsheet prices, right, Ross? So I think this is the bottom for Natcats. I could see a quick move up once some traction uh, gets gained after more people know about DMT and the halving. So I think that's a pretty low risk bet too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Waf. And I mean, it's honestly an interesting one. I've definitely been reluctant just to tell people about it because I am a little bit surprised that the prices have gotten this low. The only other projects that we've really seen cross that 0.15 threshold, and like Natcats, had a floor of 0.14, 0.15 for a couple days. And then it just seemed got nuked. I guess whales just kept listing and just kept listing. But the other projects that we've seen have that kind of fall from grace in any chain, they usually don't come back as much. I will say the thing going for Natcats is just how many people are supporting them on Twitter. I mean, there's just like a super strong community. My only concern with that is that, I just keep seeing the same people over and over. I'm buying more Natcats, and buying more Natcats, buying more Natcats. It's like, all right, we definitely want higher holder distribution. But as we've talked about on previous episodes, the holder counts across projects can be a little bit misleading. Certainly, most big whales who have lots of ordinals, it's advantageous to spread it out across wallets. But we're not really seeing that with the Natcats because obviously, if every Natcat was spread across in unique wallets, it would represent a higher distribution. So I don't know if it's the distribution that's keeping people away, if it's just the whales who got in for free that are keeping the price down. I have to imagine it's that. It's whales are just going to keep taking profit and rotating it into other stuff. But the thesis has never changed. I was actually talking to Mac about this last night. Just if you're bullish on DMT, if you're bullish on block runners, if you're bullish on bitmaps, like anything that relates to ordinals and just tying into the value of Bitcoin data, Natcats are definitely like a slam dunk play there. So I'm kind of with you there. Your downside risk is so low at this point. Like maybe you would lose zero point zero 0.01, absolute worst at this point you could lose is 0.28, but the upside is like a 5 to 10x from here. So I don't really see why you wouldn't be going for it.
Yeah, we touched upon bitmaps as well last week, and I think again that's in the same similar situation where the narrative is playing against it right now. It's not that metaverse DMT narrative at the moment. It's people pretty much getting ready for runes. So I think it's really just a narrative play. At some point, that narrative will pick up, and things always look better when the price is up, and things always look terrible when the price is down, and nobody wants to touch it when it's low, but everybody wants in when it's high. So I just think you need to like counter trade emotions and like just make sound decisions. And I think is low risk. Of course, you could still lose, but I think if you're minimizing your risk at these entry prices right here.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Waf. Waf, you cool if I hop over to the screen share again? I think people liked it last week. I figured, you know what, let me pull up Natcats and we can go over some traits to look at near the floor. I think that could be a good value add for this week's episode if you're down.
Yeah, let's hop to it.
All right. Alrighty, gents, you know the deal. We're about to do a little screen share here. Believe it or not, I actually had a little jingle for this week's episode. No backing, just all a cappella, but whoa, Lieutenant, you got a little active mic there, but happy to have you on board there, sir. If you're feeling lost or stuck on a log, tune on in to BossDawgs. What the hell is up, everybody? Live on Magic Eden. It's a beautiful day. WAF is in New York City. I'm out here in sunny San Diego. We got the Nat Cats Magic Eden page pulled up. You already know what it is. WAF, you good to see my screen on your end?
Yeah, I got it up. I see the floor is at 0.0287 at the moment. We got 1,000 listed. Distribution still at 3.2K. So maybe it's still people adding at the moment and not getting new buyers. But I think again, low cost to enter. And I think we go through some of the accessories as a first step as far as traits is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get to the trades, just to your point, Waf, the holder count has held pretty steady here for a couple of weeks, right at this 3.2, and the listings oscillated between 1,000 and then maybe 900. But I think to your point earlier, once we get the rotation back into ordinals and especially onboarding more ordinal users, the thesis will continue to come up on the timeline. Just that first of its type, they'll see undervalued compared to the other blue chips. Because shout out to Silva there. Definitely think Node Monkeys are the ordinal blue chip, and then you could maybe say OMB and Puppets. I would say those are probably the big three. You could also argue something like Bitcoin mushrooms, but I think less people talk about them because they're already at like the 2 Bitcoin mark. But with those being the blue chips, I definitely think Natcats would still fall into that almost blue chip category, even though they have a lower price. Maybe they're like red chip right now just because it's a matter of if DMT will survive or not. But if ordinals gets more widely adopted and hopefully with runes it onboards more people into ordinals, I can certainly just see the thesis will remain intact. We'll get some more rotation back into here. And if we can get, a couple of thousand more holders on the project, I think these guys will hum. But yeah, to your point, let's start over with accessories. I was talking to Mac about this last night. I think something to keep in mind is that the collars themselves aren't super valuable. So first and foremost, the trait floor right now is pretty consolidated. So when Natcats had a floor of like 0.14, there was big premiums on the individual traits. Cigarette's a pretty notable one because it's not that rare in the collection. It's an 8,000 supply, but there's 1,400. So it's pretty common, all things considered. But when the floor was like 0.12, cigarettes were at about 0.14. So this is a good time if you are looking to get into Natcats because, right now you can pay 0.001 over floor. And as Natcats expands, that premium is going to expand with it. So I would definitely be looking to get some rare traits just as the thesis as to why these accessories are good things to look at. Because even something simple as a cigarette where you're barely overpaying, if these things 5x from here, that's going to be, a 10x just on the premium.
Yeah, and cigarettes is kind of like the hoodie discussion we had last week, where it's always desirable, even if it's not the rarest. It's always one that people seem to draw their attention to.
Yeah, completely agree. But I usually fade most of the collars. The spiked collar is one that I do look for a nice premium. I think there was one that sold for pretty much floor today. Maybe it sold for like 0.03, so that was a big pickup. Headband, I definitely fade. like think there might be minor premium, but again, you just have to look at like what actually was selling. So when Nat Cats were higher, I wasn't super seeing people reaching for the headbands. I was seeing blood drips. Now you can see here just like the gap in the availability, right? Like there's 535 of these other ones, 283. It's a pretty rare trait on the blood drips. It's only a 0.035. Would also recommend to people listening in to submit some offers out there. You know, if there's people who are looking to offboard Nat Cats, you could throw an offer out there for 0.03. You're barely paying over floor, but to get something that's only 283 of them, I definitely think blood trips were one that I was seeing people pay big premiums on when it was over the counter and in spreadsheets. So that's definitely one I like.
Yeah, I would say throw those stink bids out there because there's panic sellers at the moment. So, you know, you could probably capture something for 10 to 20% below the floor if you get lucky.
Absolutely. Dude, laser eyes at 0.059, that's always a favorite. Sun hat, I would stay away from it, folks, as an accessory to pay premium on. Not a big fan of it. Doesn't seem like it does well. I'm going to buy one of these later today. I'm just going to do it. Yarn, a 43 trade at a 0.064 floor. That makes no sense in my book. So I think I'm going to be picking one of these up. Catnip as well at 0.12. I mean, people were paying 0.3, 0.4 for these when the floor was a little bit higher. This I would do if I had a little bit of bigger bankroll. Like we said, spike collar, really nice premium on it. So if you can throw out a stink bid and it'll hit, go for it. But yeah, I think yarn, that's a no-brainer in my book. I'll definitely be throwing out a bid for one of these guys, maybe 0.05 if the price is right for the seller.
You know, yesterday I hesitated on a two color Nat Cat that was going for like 0.069. And then in the 15, 20 minutes, I was deciding whether or not I wanted to buy it. It got scooped up. And there's only like 32 two color match ones.
What was the matching colors? Like the face with the ears?
It's like two color match. So basically, most of the body was purple, and I think the ears were like a black color. Yeah, you could probably. I don't know if you could see the previous sale,
Oh,
but
wow.
like these
Yeah,
are
there we
pretty
go.
rare. There's only like 32 two color traits.
Oh, I see. There's literally only two colors on the cat. Wow, very cool. Yeah, these things are definitely going to be ones to look at in the future. I think this is a really good call out too. I mean, the ones that are like the same color, there's barely any of them in the collection. I think there's a few that are just like solid yellow and maybe I mean, I guess they'll be included here, right? Yeah, like one like this where it's all yellow except the nose. I think when we did our AMA with Evie, he said there's no Nat Cat that's all one color. So like there's none of these that are all yellow with the yellow nose, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think these colored ones are pretty sweet, and I definitely think these will have some higher premiums once people catch on. Again, this was a trait filter that was added after the initial round, so people are either not aware of it right now, or again, floor's down pretty bad, so people might not be paying the premiums. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of cool accessories out there. I would just say stick to stuff that's close to the floor. Fish is another good one too. That's a mouth type, I believe, or fish type. So right now, it's funny, the salmon is rarer than the trout, but it's charging less of a premium. If you can get these at floor, it's a no-brainer. Salmon was charging about a 0.04 premium in Nat Cat's Prime. Trout, maybe 0.02 to 0.04. So I think just given those huge premiums that we used to see with them and the sales when they're, you know, less than 0.01 above the floor, maybe not at this price, but if you can make a stink bid and get it for 0.002 above floor, I would definitely be a happy buyer at that point.
I mean, if you look at that alien too, at 0.4, the alien fish, and one sold previously for like over 1 Bitcoin, and now it's at 0.4. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's still a mystery. Definitely still have love for the cats. I haven't really sold any of mine. All of them I've just been waiting and still accumulating. Like I said, I'll probably be buying that yarn later today if I can take some liquidity. If not today, then I'll definitely wait until the Tensor airdrop. But yeah, great shout on the Nat Cats. Always happy to talk about those, WAF. Before we get back into some specific projects, let's do a check-in on Merlin Chain. As you famously said, if you're bullish on Merlin, you're not bullish enough. I got to know where are we at and how are you feeling about Merlin as we get closer to the happening.
So since the Merlin swap IDO, the price has kind of come down a bit. Currently, we are trading at about 0.007 or 0.008, so it's down about close to 50% from its highs. But I think it's just consolidating at this range. Merlin Starter did have a drop today. It was for the Spellbook NFT that we were talking about before. and I think went mostly through the whitelist.
Yeah, I saw that you got one of those. How did those end up going? Did that mint out already?
Oh, it's minted out. I didn't get in. Like I was waiting for the public, and it just never got there. There was a first come first serve, but the way they communicated wasn't like the greatest, so it was hard to kind of understand what time it was dropping and what phase they were in. So I just kind of missed it. I had the page up, and the next thing I knew it was gone. And I don't even know where they're trading on in secondary. I was just trying to find out like where those things are available.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure either about that, about where they're going to be trading those, but I definitely feel like it's going to be bullish as we're getting closer to the halvening. Obviously, a ton of money's been locked up, and usually we're only focused on ordinals. This is just something that's kind of been top of mind for me today, so I'll bring it up and see what your thoughts are. I think that we're pretty close to the rotation back into some other stuff. It's potential that it might go to base instead of just ordinals. I do think with runes and the happening this month, it's pretty likely that we'll see a lot of rotation back into ordinals. But so much of the liquidity that we've seen in the space, I think, clearly has gone into shitcoins, right? It's like there used to be one or two coins that would be sustaining uh, 10 plus million market caps, and now it's just dozens and dozens and dozens of memes. I mean, I was just going through Deck Screener, and it's almost dizzying to an extent. You're just seeing all these random memes. They're all propped up. They all have liquidity tied up in them. And I think we just saw yesterday, I'm not sure how much you keep up with this, WAF, but there were just all of these Ansem coins, who's like the top Solana influencer, really influential in getting these shit coins, but he had his cat with a coin, his dog, his mom, his dad, like literally just a comical amount of Ansem related coins. And now there's maybe 50 or 60 cat related coins that are out there, just to the point where it's like, in my mind, it's getting a little toppish, a little bit exhausting. So I personally started rotating out of shitcoins. I'm not positive that it is going to be rotating out. And if there is like a transition to a new shitcoin meta and someone comes up with a funny meme or narrative, it could certainly kick the can down the road a little bit. But at least based on all of that, I really would not be surprised if we start to see some of these coins sell off a little bit, get a little bit of red for a couple of weeks. And I think it could be the catalyst that ordinals are looking for, tagging or pairing with the halvening, just to have that liquidity leave the shitcoin space, even if only for a little bit.
I've paid attention to it. I haven't jumped in like with both feet. I've dabbled a little bit because I'm not the best shitcoin trader. This cycle on shitcoins has definitely been running long. And probably a lot of people in MVHQ is winning. So, hopefully for their sake, it still runs a little bit more. I guess what I worry about is if once the shitcoin kind of shoe drops, does that mean we're in for a overall broad-based pullback, or is it going to be a flight to, I'm going to say, quality back to major alts and like Bitcoin and Ethereum as an example? That I don't know yet. It seems like the market's been indecisive. I mean, like Sunday night, Bitcoin was at like 71,000, and then it looked like we were about to kick off the all-time high this week, and then we suddenly dropped, and then the major alt also kind of pulled back as a result of that, and now we've kind of been just hovering around 65, 66 for the past couple of days. So I think the market is like getting close to a decision. We haven't gotten there yet, and I think based on whether Bitcoin breaks up or down is gonna determine whether the shitcoin cycle continues longer, or will it also come to an end as well.
Yeah, great chat on that, WAF, of it all being tied to Bitcoin. I know that's something that we talked about in last week's episode, that the correlation these days, at least recently, has been if Bitcoin goes down, ordinals go down. If it goes up, ordinals go up. It used to be kind of a inverse correlation, but at this point, it seems like they're moving in tandem. I do agree with you there, and I think it's healthy in a bull market to have a pullback. And I just want to, remind people who might be getting euphoric or getting excited with just how far this bull cycle has gone. I know we came out of a pretty deep bear. Some of us thought that this was going to be a mini bull, only last a month. We're going on like 6 or 7 months now of having a bull run and having lots of opportunities. And I mean, it still seems like the narratives and the opportunities out there are still super strong, right? We still have this ETH ETF that's on the verge of approval. We still have major airdrops in the space happening. We had Wormhole today. We're going to have Tensor in 5 days. So, in my mind, there's certainly enough catalyst to keep people in the space. But we do also need to look at a broader market. And in the U.S. Stock exchange or just traditional markets, things usually just don't run up aggressively indefinitely. Even in a bull run, there is usually a 3 to 4 week period of pullback and consolidation before it goes higher. And then how that translates a lot of the times in the Web3 space is the stuff that people have conviction in dips a little bit. The stuff that's a little bit newer gets taken to the woodshed and makes way for the new stuff to come out after. And I think that's, in my mind, where we're at. And at this point, audience, if you want to chime in, let me know. If you think I'm totally off base here, if you think I'm right, that we feel toppish, if you think we got lots of leg, I would love to hear it. But I really wouldn't be surprised with a lot of these shit coins if we see a good portion of the field kind of fizzle out, 50-60% pullbacks. Same thing with ordinals. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little dip. I think the stuff that is convicted, the node monkeys, the puppets, I think that stuff's going to hold pretty well, even if there is a small pullback. But I think a lot of those random projects that we see that are kind of in between the leaders, those are going to fizzle out and then come back stronger with the next wave of new stuff. And I think that's just, part of the cycle. You got to make way for new projects, get new interest and new money in the space. So yeah, I think if we get a pullback, it's nothing to panic over. I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin does go a little bit lower before going higher, but I think it's all in due time that we reach that blow off top. I don't think we're anywhere close to the true end of this cycle.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I think it's just getting started. But if everyone's on the same page and everyone's overly bullish, and then the greed and fear index is sky high, then where the leverage means the leverage is up. That means everything is too bullish. It means a pullback is inevitable. So we need to kind of climb like a wall of worry where people are doubtful that the bull run is continuing. You gotta have people on both sides of the fence with differing opinions, because I think once everyone feels the same way, then you probably at the top of at least a local top or interim top. And I think the cycle still has like at least a year left to run. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I see the market. It's a healthy pullback. People get scared about a 5% pullback nowadays, where I remember like the pullbacks in previous cycles used to be a lot more aggressive. They would be 20 to 40%. I think now with this Bitcoin being such a high price, like a $5,000 move down percent wise is not that much, but from like a dollar perspective and people looking at their portfolios, it seems like a lot. But in reality, it really isn't that much.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, Waf. And I mean, I'm with you. I don't think there's any reason to really panic. I do think there's something to be said about positioning. If you're in stuff that can be illiquid and you think it's pulling back, sometimes it is okay to sell for a slight loss. I know on some shitcoins that I entered in recently, I kind of just sold all those off, transferred over to Solana. I honestly might just liquidate the Solana and have the cash. I've talked about this a lot on various parts of MVHQ, but I'm just a huge dip buyer this bull cycle. And I think it makes sense to be a dip buyer, right? If we're a bull cycle and we know that the cycle, like you're saying, we don't know, but we anticipate that this cycle is going to last for multiple more months, maybe even a year. There's just great opportunities that present themselves. And usually in crypto, stuff doesn't just dip like 5%. So if there is a project you have conviction in, you have a pretty big bag, I would, again, not financial advice, but I would definitely consider scaling out of some of that stuff, just keeping some capital on hand, and then just being ready to buy the dip when it comes. All of the blue chips and ordinals are top priority for me to buy when the opportunity is right. If we can get puppets back into that 0.14 range, no brainer buy. Node monkeys at sub 0.4, huge buy. Nat cats at this level, I think, are still a buy, but if they go even lower, if they, for whatever reason, went down to 0.02, I think it would be really easy to sweep a lot of those. So yeah, I think to your point, dips present themselves. I think if you've already are feeling a little bit nervous and you're down 5%, I would take the loss IMO and then wait for it to be down 30, 40%, but you have cash instead and then buy that dip. that's just what I've been doing personally. Again, it's never financial advice, but wanted to share that perspective with you, Af, as well as the audience.
Yeah, it also would focus on the collections or the tokens, whatever you're looking to buy. Off the pullbacks, the ones that bounce back the quickest are usually like the stronger players in the market. Like whether we're talking about ordinals or whether we're talking about tokens. So like in ordinals case, I can see Bitcoin puppets rising aggressively because they've just been very strong and solid throughout this entire cycle. Even today at a 0.244 floor, like they've held pretty strong. Same thing I would say for node monkeys. I mean, basically half a Bitcoin for a node monkey. It's held its floor pretty well. Same thing with quantum cats. I mean, 0.27, that's still a pretty strong floor, and it's held it as well. Even OMB. So when it's time to take off, these things are gonna run, I think, aggressively. And the same thing with tokens. Like for me, like Solana, I like buying Solana on a pullbacks. I just think Solana is like one of the strongest coins in this cycle, and at $185, it seems like an easy buy to me.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there, Waf. I am definitely a big buyer of Solana. I have a lot of layered limit orders for below 180, so I'll definitely be going into those. And to your point on the strong projects, and to Silva's point earlier, just on identifying those blue chips, like let's take a minute here to just acknowledge what was going on in Solana when it was really popular. The clear blue chip were Mad Lads, Tensorians, and then the SPL 50, I think it was called, that first token that came out. Those just continue to do phenomenally well as Solana gained traction. I know they kind of peaked out at a certain point. I know Tensorians fell a decent bit as they sort of changed rules on how to earn points with them. But the blue chips continue to perform well. And in the meme coin and shitcoin markets, we saw WIF, the clear example of this. No matter how high the market cap went, as Solana continued to grow and stay hot, it just kept going. And you can see the exact same thing on base right now with some of the base meme coins that are taking off. The leaders of the pack during the entire bull cycle genuinely or generally stay the leaders. And that's nothing new, right? We saw it with Bored Apes, we saw it with Punks, we saw it with Azuki. So it's just very clear at this point it is puppets. It is node monkeys. Like these are projects that we know by now, and I know we talk about them a lot to the audience, but we're continuing to bring it up because you can 100% see that strength to your point, Laugh. And I think that's just like if you're looking for a place to have your cash, or when you have cash on the sidelines and you're looking for what to buy, don't overthink it. It's right there. I once again want to say this is not financial advice, but it is right there, right? Puppets are so strong. People are clearly not selling even as the market is pulling back. They're still pretty close to their all-time highs. If we get that rotation back into ordinals, we get that crazy next leg up on volume, for sure that money should be flowing into those top projects and send them even higher. So I love the call out on that, Laugh. I would just be slamming the table on ordinal blue chips if the pullback continues.
Yeah, cause I see like a 2x coming for puppets on the next leg up. I mean, look at Runestones. I mean, Runestones has held very strong at a 0.047 floor. I think like they calculated the market cap at like 380 million at this point. So like I think that could go to 1 billion. So I think Runestone is strong. We're only 17 days away from the halving. And Runestone has not dipped. Everyone's gonna hold it to make sure they get those Runestone tokens, after the halving. And I think the Rune Frenzy is going to begin at that point. You're going to have the Merle release, the Merle and Chain governance token is going to be released at that time. So the liquidity is going to get flooded in like right after the halving. So it's going to be interesting to see like if people are going to play with Bitcoin layer 1 or they're going to go to layer 2 with all the fees and the sats rising. I just think there's going to be a lot more liquidity and these things are all just going to move up quite easily. They all could 2x. Anything on the top in the top 12 for the last 7 days or the last 30 days could easily do a 2x on when I mean top 12, I mean the top 12 collections on Magic Eden.
100%. I also did want to shout out Silva Surger. Thank you for the call out in voice hangout chat. Apparently Element Marketplace does have the Merlin NFTs now for trading. I definitely think there is some trades or plays to be made there, especially with liquidity unlocking and more people actively going to be trading on Merlin soon. Being able to trade some of those NFTs early could be a big cook. So appreciate that shout out, Silva. That's awesome, and definitely gonna be taking a look at those after the episode.
So Ross, what are your thoughts on some of the collections that recently dropped? Like when we were doing the show last week, we had ink on Bitcoin drop, and a lot of people here got in on the whitelist, and it was trading as high as I want to say 0.095, maybe even up to zero point 0.1. And now the floor is 0.023. What do you think of that? And also on One Force, the Fallen also was a hot drop this past week, and it's sitting at a zero point zero 0.02 floor. So I'm just curious to get your take on the price action and the current floors, and what do you think are the moves for those two collections?
Oh wow, really appreciate the circle back from last week's episode. Yeah, I mean, I think we laid it out pretty well to the audience prior to it. There was a really good play to buy those dips on Inked leading up to the reveal, right? Like we did see a few oscillation periods where it went down to zero point zero 0.06, back up to zero point zero 0.08. So there was definitely a couple of windows there where you could have hopped in, made a couple of profit plays just of, zero point zero 0.01 to zero point zero 0.02 Bitcoin. So I hope some people took advantage of that. But the disclaimer the entire time was wait for the reveal, look at the art. We're not sure if the art's going to look good or not. We did see some previews that some of the cooler ones in the collection look good, but honestly, I think they flopped the art on Inked. In my opinion, way too similar to Azuki. It's just going to invite the Azuki derivative comment from it. I made a tweet on my Twitter. I said, I think they're going to be below 0.02 in a month from now. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat a jar of pickles. I would have done something more unsavory, but I did want to deliver. So I will be devouring a jar of pickles if in a couple weeks they are above 0.02. But yeah, I think that's just a flop, man. Like you got to look at what the mint point price was. It was like 0.005. So even now, it's still a 4x on mint. I don't see if someone minted them for free why they wouldn't have sold when it was higher. It was definitely a solid pre-reveal play. As always, like we talk about after a reveal, there's bound to be a drop. I think there was a little bit of a dip that got eaten up, but I just think the art's not good enough to merit people really, you know, radicalizing around that community. And that's what it is a lot of the time. It's just, are people actually going to be repping them as PFPs? And to be honest, I just see node monkeys, I see puppets, I see nat cats and quantum cats, and OMB. Those are the only real collections I see in ordinals that people rep as PFPs. And because of that social proof, I just think that was going to be Ink's saving grace. If everyone repped the PFPs, if they look sick, no brainer, they would have done great. But I don't think there's any chance they get up to those 0.1 prices again. Curious your thoughts on it, though.
I agree with you. I had the whitelist. I sold mine pretty much while we were doing the show for 0.07. Then I saw it climb a little bit higher, and I was like, oh, maybe I should have waited. But you know what? In hindsight, I'd take my 0.07 all day, seeing that the price is 0.023 right now. Definitely fell more than I was anticipating, but I guess that was due to the art, because the art, to your point, is also pretty bad. But I do know like some people got to snipe, and I want to talk about sniping. Like the sniping is going on in the mempool has been pretty crazy, where people are identifying, I guess, the rares and are able to front run purchases and get in on something like an ink reveal, and make a lot of money on sniping, like because those black and white versions of the ink on Bitcoin, I don't know what they call them. They were going for zero point 0.5, I think, and I think our resident Mr. Bull was even able to like snipe a few of those and flip them. So like, I mean, I think there's opportunity there with sniping tools for collection reveals to like really make a lot of money.
100%. I wish I knew more about the sniping tools that existed. It was super lucrative during the ETH days. And again, there's substitutes for it. It's definitely annoying about the front running, but like we talked about the setup last time, just identifying those rare traits early, I think, is an edge. That was something that I did a lot back in my ETH days. I would pretty much just look at the collection and just go through all the traits and like do an aesthetics check. If it's just like a rare trait, but it's pretty minor, let's just say it's eyes for some reason. If there's a rare pair of eyes, but it just doesn't look that cool, whatever. If it's a rare pair of eyes that have a golden aura and some electricity around them and there's a glittery background that goes along with it, like now we're talking, right? So people always just want that extra something in their PFP that's going to send it over the top. And even if you can't snipe, you can still identify some of those rare traits early and become an early mover. You get a lot of premium on those. But to your point, yeah, if you know of sniping tools that are out there in Bitcoin, if you're able to onboard onto those, we should be seeing many more Ordinals projects coming out this bull run, especially once Rune Mania begins. So definitely a good practice to familiarize yourself with, even if Ordinals are a bit in a pullback now.
Yeah, the market is definitely maturing because these tools are starting to kind of hit the market. So I think you're gonna expect to see more of that. I was curious on your thoughts on the other collection, the On One Force. What do you think of that one?
Oh yeah. I'm not a huge fan, honestly. Like I think it's just a weird concept. On One was a huge blue chip back in the old ETH days. It had a fall from grace, kind of died, pumped back up to a few ETH, died again. But I think we saw Deadfellas do it too earlier on when ordinals were like infant ordinals. And any project that came out was pretty popular and held decent floors. But yeah, I mean, end of the day, I think it was just a cash grab. I know initially they had too high a mint price. People flooded them. They lowered it. We saw the exact same pricing play out, right? The price went up when it was pre-reveal. They revealed there were some cool ones, but it all pretty much looks the same. There's different variations. Some look cooler than others, but I'm not seeing any people actually repping them. And I think again, just with any NFT, that's kind of the appeal to it. And I think we just need to look at where we're at in 2024 versus where we were at in 2021 and 2022. The only reason to buy an NFT, at least in my mind, is if it has some counterpart utility to it or if you want to become a member of the community. So, let's talk about that. Puppets, clear example in Ordinals of a PFP that has an active community. People on there have a very certain characteristic about them. There's clearly the presence felt on social media. They are going to hold on to their puppets because they like the vibe, and it would encourage other people who aren't a part of that community to want to join it. So what is it about On One that would make someone join it or buy that NFT? In my opinion, there's no reason. And because of that, there's nothing notable about On One, at least this, revamp of a project that's pretty much dead on ETH. So I don't really see any catalyst for why it would go up unless a community magically forms around them. But I don't see that happening. And I think that's just kind of what I would say for any NFT collection out there. I want to shout out Big Mac Attack in the audience. He posted an awesome field report about a PFP on the base network, on-chain Gaia's. You look at the floor price of those pre-revealed, it makes sense because they're on the base network. There's not a lot of PFPs that exist in that space. The pre-reveal art looks amazing. So clearly there is a potential to have that nice community form on base chain and have people adopt them and purchase those NFTs. We already know what those NFTs are on ordinals. It's going to take a lot of force and momentum to dethrone the leaderboard. And the On One Fallens are not it. Not NFA, but I wouldn't fucking buy them.
I'm with you on both of those. I think even when I go back to my Twitter timeline, I see mostly puppets. I see frogs. I see some quantum cats. I see a lot of nat cats as well, but maybe that's my feed. But yeah, I don't see people repping like ink on Bitcoin. I don't see people repping On Ones. I don't really see people repping these other collections. So I think if you're not going to rep it, it's probably not worth buying it unless you're just flipping it, which I think is more than okay to flip any reveal, any new collection. And I viewed both of those collections as just flips. Probably never look at them again. I'll never buy them again. It was just a flip, and I think that's what it was for me.
Yeah, completely well said. It definitely was a flip for me as well. I wasn't playing them personally because I think I just saw it when the price was already popped, waiting for pullbacks, and just never timed it quite right. But yeah, I think that's just the way to be in this space. Is you just kind of have to be nimble and move like water. Definitely, worth trying to get whitelists if you're able to by any means. If you got whitelists to those, it was definitely a cook if you're able to mint. But in terms of buying them off secondary, I think with ordinals particularly, you see the crowds are smarter. I'm actually going to double down on that. I think it's the entire space, because look at like Solana NFTs. Solana, was so popular for the past couple of months. That was like the main chain that came out in this bull cycle that wasn't as popular in other cycles. The NFTs struggled. And audience, if you feel differently, feel free to talk about it here. I want to have this open discourse, but there were only a few Solana projects that did really well and stayed. A lot of the others struggled to gain traction. And again, I think it was the same kind of elements. We saw projects like Bankman come on the scene, a lot of pre-reveal hype. No one actually rep them as PFPs. Same thing with, what were they? Crypto Undead, right? Huge shilling in it. At one point, reached like a 20 soul floor. No one was repping them. What happens with a community if no one's actually repping them? No one really cares. I mean, so much of it is just that ability. I don't know what it is. I don't know why the PFP is what drives people into buying those collections. I think a lot of it just has to do with the online status and identifying with your profile picture to a point where you can't sell it. And I think we're seeing that in ordinals. Those communities are already out there. So when you talked about earlier how Runestones is holding that floor so well, it makes sense, because it's not about the profile picture. It's not about the art at all. It's about the concept of Runestones. It's about mining runes. So that's what I'd be looking at ordinals, right? Some of the projects that we've talked about before are like ordinal land projects. One that's coming out soon or has been teased is this Bitmap OS, which is like an open world kind of 3D rendering of some bitmaps. So that'll be interesting to see play out. But I would just continue in ordinals to look for innovation in both art as well as the asset itself. Like, there's going to be plays that I think will be easier than art based, and those are usually just going to be stuff like Runestones, where it's all interchangeable. They're just digital assets, but has nothing to do with like, will a community form around them or not.
I mean, they definitely have a community, but I was going to ask you this, because I there's not that many projects I'm like looking forward to from like an ordinal perspective. That's why I think these OG ones tend to stay on top. But there is one that I think is really interesting, and that's Bitmap Emporium. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am, yeah. I'm trying to get access to their community. It's pretty interesting. It seems like a little underground of ordinals, and I know there's a few ordinal alpha groups that are out there, but that one seems pretty closely guarded, and they have tasks every now and then in the waiting room of how to get in. Are you a member?
So I'm a member, and I finally got a code today, but I didn't like go to the Ascension portal in time to actually buy the pre-sale. So the next time it opens up will be at 7:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm gonna try and go for it then. But I think they're a really good alpha group, and the founder, he rocks like a Neo Tokyo PFP. So I think this kind of gives me those Neo Tokyo season 1 vibes, where he's like dropping clues on how to get in, and it's gonna be DMT related, the project itself. So he is building something on a bitmap. And I think the number of people in the collection represents each parcel on that bitmap. So it's a smaller size collection, and it's gonna be like an alpha group, but also a team that's, or not a team, but a community that is like self-sufficient, that kind of does things similar to like an MVHQ, I would say, where they're just building things together, finding things together, and they'll be closely guarded, to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to get in for a couple weeks now. Just haven't been able to crack the clues in time, but I just sent an invite link to the Discord and voice hangout chat. If you're not in it yet, pop on over to there. Again, there's a waiting room. Hopefully you're able to join through that link. Not sure if it's still valid or not, but give it a shot. And then if not, you can check out Bitmap Emporium on Twitter, and they're talking about ways to get in there. Also, to your point, yeah, 100%, didn't mean to discount there not being a community for runestones. There's definitely a community for runestones. I was more so saying like, the community is not contingent on the success of a PFP or people adopting the art. It's more so just an asset that has a different utility. So, the community isn't sort of forced by vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Leonidas leads the charge. He's keeping runestones hype, and keeping the engagement going on Twitter and on X. And it's giving like life to the project, and the fact that it's so widely distributed, the volumes is still seems to be up there. Like it's like number one pretty much every single day still. Um, I think Runestone's going to perform really well. I actually have a really interesting story too to tell you about some Runestones. Um, BTC Alchemist mentioned that he found a runestone on his Sparrow wallet, and I used Sparrow when they had cursed inscriptions back in May 2023. So I was like, you know what? I have a Sparrow wallet. Let me look at some of my old coin addresses and see if I got lucky and got anything. And for the most part, most of my addresses, I had moved out the inscriptions to like a Unisat or an Xverse when I was selling my cursed punks and stuff like that. But on the couple of wallet addresses that I screwed up my inscriptions, I had multiple inscriptions there. And guess what? I found 2 runestones in there.
Dude, no way. What a cook.
I know, right? Unbelievable. On the wallets that I made a mistake, I found runestones in there. Go figure. So now I'm just trying to figure out how to get them out, which I think I did. So after this show, I think I'm going to get them out.
All right. A nice little cook. We'll absolutely take that.
Yeah, crazy. So shout out to Bitcoin Alchemist for putting me onto that.
Big shout out. That's so cool.
Yes, I would say if you guys messed around with Sparrow when cursed inscriptions was a thing, maybe take a look back. You could check your address in ordiscan.com. Just pop in all your addresses, see what's in those wallets. You might have a runestone in there. So I actually got the runestone, and then that gamestone was airdropped to the same wallets as well. But those game stones are not doing so great, so I'm just gonna leave those in there.
Yeah, very fair, but still a cook nonetheless. That's quite the come up there, WAF. Yeah, I unfortunately was onboarded slightly late to Ordinal, so I was a big flipper, never really had too many at one point until my bankroll got higher, so never qualified for runestones. Bought a lot of them over Whales over the counter market, which was an absolute shit show for the record, but yeah, definitely was bullish on having runestones off the jump. So really props to Leonidas, whether you have the FUD for him or not. He did do a good job on distribution, and it is a red hot project.
Yeah, you must have cooked on Whales Market buying them over the counter, because I think they were as low as like $500 and then maybe as high as like 1,500. So you definitely must have cooked on those, I would say.
Oh yeah, I think I paid around like 1,200 on average for him, and I got 3. So I was definitely happy about that. Was happy the sellers actually sent him. I was surprised. It kind of helped at the time. The floor dipped a little bit, but there was definitely some Whales Market FUD. I actually got kicked out of their Discord because I was like, hey, can I get help on this? Why are you guys not responding to tickets? Can you guys make an announcement? And then they got kicked for that. But yeah, there was like a 2-day delay on getting runestones out to people who bought them. So it worked out in the long run, but it was definitely a little bit of FUD there.
I still use Whales Market. I keep tracking the Merlin price. So currently it's at $2.46 a token. So I don't know if you recall, a couple of weeks back we were probably as high as $3. So it's definitely come down a bit. I think with them extending on the time to stake, people are going to get more points and maybe eventually get a little bit more diluted by keeping keeping it going a little bit longer. But at $2.50, even that price, that's going to be a cook.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute cook.
Anything else you're looking forward to in the space? I mean, besides Bitmap Emporium, there's really not that many projects I'm looking forward to too much. I did see there's like one of these I'm gonna say earlier inscription projects that's coming out soon. It's called Satoshi's Pride, and it's only a collection of 100, but it's a pretty steep buy-in at 0.098 BTC. I don't know if you've looked into that or you know anything about that, but curious of your thoughts about that, and also if there's any other projects that you are looking forward to.
No, I'd love to see the Satoshi's Pride. If you want to send a link, I can pull it up in a screen share, or if you just want to share like a tweet or something about it, or any info you know on it. But this is my first time hearing about it.
It's a collection that's like under 14,000 inscription numbers, and it's only a collection size of 100. There's a Discord, and they're launching on Magic Eden on the launch pad, I believe, tomorrow. I just dropped the Magic Eden link into VC.
Oh, beautiful.
And let me just find their X real quick.
0.098 definitely seems a little steep, but let's see what the under 10K collections on Bitcoin are. So it looks like the sub 10K inscriptions alone. So this is just any inscription that's sub 10K. The floor is 0.06. So that's definitely interesting. At 0.098, it is a little bit pricey, right? Because it's sub 14K. So that might translate to just the range between 10K and 14K. Maybe it's below 10K for some of them, but I'd imagine most of them are probably in that range. But yeah, there's still definitely a premium in that price range. I would say if you want to just extrapolate here, doing some like loose napkin math, they're still probably worth like 0.04 to 0.05 just based solely on that low inscription number. So I think you can offset some of the price for them there. They definitely have like a fun pixel vibe to them. With only 100, I think there's pros and cons. Obviously, super thin floor, so that could go very quickly, and you could also establish a very tight knit community. So they could be very coveted. If the members who buy them are very smart and talk, could be an alpha group. So I think there's some upside there. But obviously, the clear downside is just there's a very small window where you're going to get the attention of the greater ordinal sphere. We've seen this with lots of other projects beforehand. There might be volume for a day, but once volume dries up, that's kind of it. So I think this one's great if you have a very large bankroll, if you've already had, a few Bitcoin under your belt, maybe you want to try around, get something like this. They definitely look fun. But I would do a little bit of digging before going into this one, because to your point, Waf, for almost 0.1 Bitcoin, that's pretty high, even if it is only 100.
Yeah, I think this one's a hard pass. I saw it on my radar. I saw a lot of giveaways for this particular project, but with the caveat, like if you enter the raffle, make sure you mint. So I didn't like that precautionary note there. And I think at 100 limit, you're not going to really have a community. Their Twitter engagement's a little bit low. So yeah, I didn't really like it. JD mentioned Gumbo and 625. Are you familiar with either one of those? I know I got a whitelist spot for 625.
No, I haven't heard of either one of those.
I wonder if JD could come up if he's in the chat, because I know it's like from like a famous artist, but I don't really know too much about him. Maybe he could even just pop it in chat and I could read it out. Yeah, share the link and then we could talk about it. The other thing I've been waiting for is Raystone. Like I know the mint has been paused at the moment, so everybody's waiting for that to kind of start up again. I don't know. Have you minted any of those, boss?
Yeah, I've honestly been out on minting for a little bit recently. I think I just we've talked about it before. I think you just gotta pick your area of focus and figure out where you want to spend your time. I've just been pretty busy with other stuff going on lately, so I haven't been as glued to the ordinals chat. I'd say my main check-ins are just kind of monitoring the volume in ordinals, seeing which collections are there, and then buying any dips of projects. I usually wait for stuff on secondary at this point, honestly. I did see raid stones. Yeah, those are pretty cool. I didn't realize the mint was paused, but I thought the artwork for them was really fun for rune stones.
Yeah, there's some that have some rare traits, so look out for those. This is a free mint, so I would just keep your eye on it. If you have a rune stone, it's a free mint, so that's a good one.
Do you still have to currently be holding the runestone, or is it just have had one?
I think you still have to be holding it.
Womp womp for me, but yeah, I mean that could be a little play there if you want to buy a runestone, get one of these, and then sell off the runestone. That could be kind of fun. But yeah, I definitely think these will be fun, especially when Runestone Mania hits. This is a nice collection size, I think, for an art project where there's only 3 of them. Not a ton of volume on it quite yet, but I think the art's definitely cool, and the fact that they're all generative and different, it's a fun one. I definitely like that. So thanks for putting that on the radar. I saw that in chat a few days ago. I didn't realize that's what it was called, but very cool.
Yeah, actually, I saw this too, but I kind of forgot about it. It's definitely has like the cute PFP type of art.
Let's see, JD also sharing out here. Gumbo. Oh, hey, yeah, this little beaver guy. Didn't realize he's coming on Bitcoin. That's pretty fun. Very nice. Yeah, the price for those are pretty nice at 0.0035 and then a public at 0.0044. It's not too bad. I think anything over 0.01 for this would have been a little bit high. But yeah, a lot of our members in MVHQ do rep the art for this. I've always thought the art was pretty cute and fun. So this is one that I think could do decently well. It's a small supply. There's only 3,000 of them at 0.0044. I think there's definitely merit to what we've talked about in people repping the PFPs for community. We already know people rep the PFPs. We already know the artist does a lot of fun stuff and just posts. So for the art alone, I think Gumbo's a good one to look out on.
I just dropped the link for Ordinal 625. This is another one that's coming out soon. I don't know who the artist is, but I've heard that he's somebody pretty famous. His name is Peakcell. Are you familiar with him at all?
No, the art really reminds me of what was that project called? Chimpers.
Man, I like the pixelated artwork. It looks pretty good. I think this one could do really well.
Oh, dude, these are sick. Yeah, and you got a whitelist to this?
Yeah, I got a whitelist in one of my discords for this, and I don't remember which one, but I got one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna be looking out for this one. I think the art on these looks awesome. I really like. I mean, just scrolling down, like some of these are really cool, pretty distinguished. The frogs with the hats and stuff like are dope. It's hard to say. I think as we talked about, I think a lot of it is just are people going to be gravitating towards it. It definitely looks like there's some sick ones. I'm seeing some spirits here, and the art looks really cool. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I'm looking for at this point. Is what does the art look like? What does the price settle at right after mint? And I usually just let the price dictate my actions for me. I at this point in ordinals think that you just have to let the market sentiment decide. That's a big reason I just haven't been too occupied with minting things lately is because there's just so many projects that come out. I've never been a huge like whitelist grinder or having to jump through hurdles to get stuff. I'll always just kind of like pick up on secondary if the signs are there. But yeah, definitely appreciate all these call outs, WAF, and as well as JD. I know JD, you're so on top of just projects coming out. Congrats on the MVP, by the way, dude. Super happy for you for that. But yeah, these just like art and vibes wise, I think they look sick. So that'd be very cool to see how they do on secondary.
Yeah, JD, thanks a lot. You're doing this. Continue doing MVP shit by posting some links to projects that we didn't talk about. I do like how these look. And like one in one of the giveaways, like just one of those enter raffles on one of the discords. So I'm not gonna grind for any whitelist. But what I thought about the other day when we mentioned like multiple wallets.
I think you might be getting rugged there.
So can you hear me?
Oh shit! You know what? It was me who got rugged. I just saw my internet connection dropped. I was looking at these 625, trying to do some digging to talk about them here, but no, that was on my end. My bad.
Oh, no, all good. I was gonna say, so like we've been pushing this multiple wallet way to secure airdrops. But the other thing that I forgot to do that I just recently did was added all those wallet addresses to my alphabot for these giveaways. So now I'm just hitting on giveaways a lot more frequently because it's not just my main address. It's like all my alt addresses are linked to the alphabot. And so yeah, I can't hit multiple raffles, but I can at least hit one in each of the different discords. So that's what I've been doing. So now I just added pretty much all my addresses to alphabot and whatever whatever tool they're using to validate raffles. I've been just adding all my addresses to it.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's an absolute cook. Definitely just continuing that meta of having multiple different wallets paying off in ordinals. It seems like there's just more and more ways to do it. So yeah, shout out for Dive Bar's Rule for calling these out in chat, and then Medarova. So shout out as always to JD just for bringing our attention to this. But yeah, he shared a link here to an older message in the ordinals chat. I'll give you my honest take here just from a objective outsider, since I don't really have much of a dog in this fight. I don't have whitelist for it. Definitely think the art is cool. I'm always kind of just aware of some of the branding that people do talking about stuff. So they're saying stuff like, let's take a look at this project. They say it gives tribute to the Bitcoin halvening and Bitcoin in general. But for me, something that I'm just not a huge fan of is when they're like, the project founder is a Web3 native and an ordinals veteran. He's supported by OGs. And then you're looking at these people and they have like 4,000 followers and they're following, thousands of people. So do with that what you will. it's not to say that the project can't and won't do well, but even if someone is an ordinal veteran or an OG, that doesn't really mean anything. I think it's a little bit more notable. And I hate to say that, like, yeah, you kind of want an influencer, but you kind of do, right? You want someone who within the Twitter sphere has that pull where there's 50,000, 100,000 people that they can promote the project to. So I think we'll see how it does. I definitely think it's worth the mint given that it is a low price. So yeah, I hope it does well just based on this art because I love to see fun art and I love to be in collections with kooky characters like this. But I would definitely let the market decide. If you're on the sidelines like myself, I definitely wouldn't FOMO into anything just because there's quote unquote OGs involved.
I mean, I know you like secondary plays. I think this one would be a good secondary play. I could see after the mint, maybe sweeping a few of these and flipping them for like 2x easily.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a quick flip play there. I'm a big flipper, as you know, WAF, so you're talking my language.
Yeah, I think the opportunity presents itself there with a cheaper mint. You could scoop up like multiple quantities of this and flip them. You know, you'll see those pendings like 300, 400, 500. Just get in early and just watch it play out like pretty much just like that, I think.
Yeah, I think for any of these projects, that's a great shout out. Like, it's always worth just monitoring the mint. If the stuff doesn't go to public and just mints out quickly, just being an early buyer offers a lot of upside. At these low prices, I think it's easy to get people to, fall into the FOMO, especially if they're pre-revealed stuff. Like we've talked about, the pre-reveal for whatever reason, there's just that buyer psychology of like, damn, the floor is high. I might get a one of one. There's cool spirits in the collection. You know, take advantage of that. If you can get in early, if people are selling it for 20% above mint, might as well get in there if it minted out quickly. And then, like you said, once there's hundreds of pendings coming in, it might be a little late to the party, but if you can kind of front run that, there's definitely some good opportunities there. So yeah, like I said, I don't really have much of a dog in the fight. I think it is all dependent on the price action afterwards, but I do love that shout there, WAF, that there probably will be a nice little cook window there and some opportunity.
I think another one that there's a couple opportunities for, and I know it's not up your alley in this case. There's a couple of derivatives coming out for puppets. I just dropped two of them. There's chubby puppets and fat puppets. I think these are another ones that you could just kind of make out quickly on a day one flip, and then they'll probably trend towards zero. But I'll be looking out for these two.
You already know my thoughts on them. I'm just taking a look at the artwork here. All right. They're definitely really funny. Fat puppets and chubby puppets. Yeah, I mean, as with any of these, my biggest thing is I would just precaution people not to buy them once they've missed the run up. Like maybe 1 in 50 derivatives just is weirdly successful. I mean, we've seen that before where there's just like a total random derivative that like becomes a meme in its own accord. So I do think just given how kooky the puppets community is, I wouldn't be surprised if they have something like this. Like we saw with the COOS, they had a few derivatives that did do well and held decent floors. But yeah, I mean, ROI is ROI, right? If these fat or chubby puppets come out and you can get them for 0.0001 and they go up to 0.001, it's still a 10x. So I don't want to discount the merit there. What I do want to discount and encourage our audience to avoid is if you get in and you see the price has already run up a 10x for mint, I probably wouldn't be looking to buy derivatives at that point. But again, that's just me, to each their own. And there certainly are derivatives that perform well, but that's where I put that. I think, WAF, you're very good at getting in early on some of these projects and just knowing that there's the profit to be made right off the jump. I would put that in that category of just early profit to be made, but probably wouldn't stick around.
Yeah, like split your puppets, split your PNB, split all your derivatives, and get what you can with these and flip them. Out of the two, I would say chubby puppets is better than the fat puppets, even though they have less followers, but their followers are actually like heads of other derivatives like MK Ultra and Queen Arf, who did the Love Puppets, and MK Ultra did PNB. So they're following chubby puppets. They seem to kind of be down with them. So I think that one would probably do better than fat puppets, but I'm following both.
Nice. No, I think that's a great call out there. Definitely founders are important, like we talked about. So Definitely going to keep those on my radar. And yeah, a quick play is a quick play. And especially for people with smaller bankrolls out there, there's always a good opportunity. You can definitely get, 3, 4x in any collection, even if it's not as safe as something like a blue chip, there's still opportunity.
Yeah, there's one other collection that was on my radar. I don't know if it minted or not. It was called Blob, but I just didn't know like if it minted or if there was if it's going to be minted because they never dropped like a link for their mint. Are you familiar with that collection at all or no?
No, I'm not. If you got a link, send it away. This is all such alpha here. We're just getting all these projects coming out. I love it.
I'll send the link. 1 second.
In the meantime, a big shout out to Sadiq. Sadiq, great to see you. For those of you who don't know, Sadiq was a pretty awesome guest that we had in the MVHQ public mint out stream, and it's great to see you here, Sadiq. Glad you're tuning on in for some Ordinals chat. All right, Blob Army. Whoa, holy shit. This is some interesting art and a ton of followers.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some like Batman comics or something, like the way it's done, but it's definitely interesting. It's definitely a different style for sure.
So have these already come out?
That I'm not sure of. I think like they were supposed to come out, and I don't know if they actually came out, but I was tracking it. I just don't know what happened to it.
Interesting. Yeah, I like this. This is pretty appealing to me because I'm just scrolling through here. I'm seeing a few things that are standing out to me. The first thing that's standing out is I'm seeing these videos of people in a pretty packed gallery. So the fact here is that it seems like there's a decent artist behind it. At the very least, they have access to this gallery, so they might be plugged into the art scene. Again, they have a ton of followers. It looks like they have 34,000 followers, and based on some of their engagement numbers, it seems like it's pretty organic. Their retweets are getting thousands of views. Their posts are getting thousands of views. So I want to say it's more than bots. You never fully know, but it does seem somewhat organic. The other thing to point out is that they do sort of have their own play on the orange eyes. So, for the people not super familiar, orange eyes is just kind of a pretty central theme in Ordinals. Maybe not central, but it's just like a meme that exists there, just orange eyes. And I'm seeing that a lot of this art integration has their take on that. There's sort of like an orange eye thing that I'm seeing on some of these different posts that they have. It looks like this hasn't minted out yet, by the way, just based on them saying they have whitelist spots to give away. But yeah, I mean, they're putting these orange eyes on other projects. It looks like some of this art is pretty trippy, pretty different. Kind of gives me like an X copy vibe. I think this is interesting, Waf. I genuinely do. I think this is one to look at.
Yeah, I like it. I just thought like I might have missed a mint because I was waiting for them to drop a link, and I was like, "Where's the link?" And then it kind of fell off my radar after like a day or two. I think this was supposed to be minted on Monday, and then something happened.
I think this is a really good call, Waf. I honestly am going to be checking this out. I'm going to try to get some of these. I think this they got a good following. The art looks super different. I think it almost has like a traditional street art feel to it. So, something that you might see reminiscent of Banksy to an extent, maybe just some other notable street art people. And I think that might play well with the Ordinals community. All this is speculation. I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm seeing it for the first time, but I'm definitely going to be glued into this one for the price action. This is one that I would probably want to get in early off mint. I think that one has a lot of potential to it because like people like weird art in Ordinals. OMB had pretty weird art. There was another project. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to remember the name of it, but it just had like very demonic dark art along with it. And that minted out at like 0.05, I want to say, and ran up to 0.2 at one point. It was a few months ago in Ordinals. I really wish I remember the name of it right now, but it had a very similar vibe to this kind of project. So even though it's kind of dark and a little bit creepy, I think if it's a low supply, there's probably going to be demand for it.
You're making me bullish. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, yeah. I mean, I like it. It passes the vibe check. As always, NFA, we'll have to see. The market's going to dictate it at the end of the day, whether I like it or not. And again, this is just based off of the previews I'm seeing, but I think it definitely checks a box of, a project unique to Ordinals and not just a clone of like a random ETH project.
Yeah, I agree. Got one more project that was on my radar, and I just dropped the link for it too. This one also hasn't minted out, although is it supposed to mint today? I don't think it minted today, but I dropped it in there.
So this one I'm gonna fade. I'll tell you why. It is because this is a clone of Aliens. If you remember that project from a few weeks ago, and that one almost reached a .01 floor and then just spectacularly dropped off. So this is kind of funny because it does sort of have that low effort vibe, and I think ultimately you could call this a puppet derivative in a roundabout way. It's not a true derivative because it's not a chubby or fat puppet, right? But the art style of MS Paint very in line with puppets. But yeah, you can see here it is absolutely from the guy who made Aliens. It's A Friends, AEYE. Aliens didn't do super well. This is their second attempt at it, but to me, it's just another way for them to get money off a mint. So I hate to be the fodder live during an episode, WAF, but I do want to give you that background that this is almost without a doubt the same artist as Alien Friends, which wasn't super successful. So I would not really be looking to get this one.
Oh, I think I came on my radar, and if you just look at the price, it's whitelist is free, and then the public is 0.00005. So it's basically free.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, even at free, yeah, I mean, you're right. If you can get it for free, why wouldn't you do it? I wouldn't have high hopes for the upside, just given that this is the second collection from this guy, and the first one didn't do great. But yeah, if you can get it for free, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, that was a random order of projects there. It wasn't like an order of conviction or anything like that. It's just the ones I had on my radar, and I think that was the last one I had actually.
Awesome. No, wow. I appreciate it. This has been an awesome, just like, making me think on my toes here, doing a little live screen of some of these projects. Yeah, to rank them, I think I would put the A Friends as least interesting in my eyes. I think the most interesting was definitely the Blob Army. I do think you had really good call outs on those puppet derivatives, since puppets are just such a prolific community. Those could do really well. I really like Gumbo World just because we've seen the art does well. So I think given the right circumstances, those could be a cook. I think Ordinal 625 is a good one to look out for after mint. These are all great projects to keep an eye out. So definitely don't want to discourage anyone who's watching. I don't know the future again. So any of these projects could be very successful once they hit the market. But yeah, well, I think for me at least, I'm definitely going to look at Blob Army. It looks like it could be a banger.
Yeah, I like Blob Army. I like Gumbo. I like 625, and then the rest are sort of like DGen plays that I will probably play. Do we got any questions from the chat? Any other projects you want us to go over?
And feel free.
Esther,
You guys don't want. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying, Esther, I'll get you a list of Discords that I'm in, but I could just tell you kind of like just speaking about it. I'm in the NatCats Discord. I am in, as far as like getting whitelist, I'm in the PMB one, Rune Guardians, Quarry. I get some from Honey Badgers. I get some from Well 3 that was previously Yoga Pets, Frogs, Ninjas. That's kind of like the majority of where I'm getting these giveaways from. All right, I think we might be coming up on the end of the show then, if there's nothing else.
Looks like we got two people typing here. Yeah, Chelsea asked WAF, Honey Badgers or Wizards of Ord a better buy? Both round .02, trying to get into a project with some good whitelist spots.
I definitely go Honey Badgers. They have giveaways running pretty much all the time.
Awesome.
I think PMB actually has a ton of giveaways too, and like their floor price is probably 0.005, so a lot cheaper than even the Badgers or Wizard of Ords, and they just run constant giveaways. That guy has a lot of connections. I'll drop the link, Estrin.
Awesome. Well, while you pull up the link there, WAF, want to thank the audience as always for tuning in. I think the themes that we talked on are just getting ready for the happening as always. Really looking at the blue chips in the space, huge theme. Talking about the ordinals rotation, we had dips, so definitely be on the lookout for dip buys. WAF, you came in hot at the end with a bunch of new projects. I absolutely love that. So a lot of stuff to look out for and keep in your radar there. and we rounded out the episode just talking about some projects that will give you a lot of giveaways. So definitely some stuff to look for there. But as always, Waf, just really appreciate your information here, man. You always come in hot with the heat with these episodes, so always love co-hosting with you. And yeah, another episode in the books.
Yeah, there's another episode. Maybe we started off a little bit slow, but we ended up hot. So as long as we give that alpha to our community and they could take some actionable steps with it, then that's all that really matters.
100%, man. Could not agree more.
All right, so for those of you who will be in New York City tomorrow at the MVHQ event, I am looking forward to meeting each and every one of you. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry.
Until next time.
Peace.